Hello everyone, Sam Baxendale here, co-founder and director of Kinetic Hiring. So for today's third and final installment of Insight on Demand, we're going to be interviewing Amanda Chin. We're really excited to interview Amanda as an icon in the market, a digital brick builder and guru of the fintech space. We look very much forward to running the session. We hope you enjoy it a great deal. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today for Insight on Demand. So for the benefit of our audience, why don't you just give us a quick overview on yourself, tell us about your background and what brings you here today?
Thanks, Sam, for having me today. Well, my name is Amanda, and I'm now the country head of Abler in Malaysia. And I've always been in pioneering industries, especially with tech and innovation. In EV industries, in fintech, especially in Malaysia. So things like payments and e-wallets was pretty much, spearheaded, with the companies I've been with, like the Touch and Go e-wallet, as well as with Revenue Monster.
Fantastic, some big brands there as well. Awesome. So we're going to start with something a little bit bigger picture. I think we're all interested in what is Malaysia's situation right now. There's been some ups and downs in areas we can control and maybe areas we can't control with COVID, etc. Coming out of that, what do you think prospects are like for the whole Malaysia digital ecosystem right now? I know that's a big question, but what are your sentiments at the moment?
I think if you asked me before December 2019, right, I would say yes, it's it's booming. It's slowly, there's a rise of startups really testing out the market, right, using Malaysia really as a platform. But now, I mean, literally, as we all know, COVID-19 has pushed us, to the very brink that for us to really do or die, right? Literally, right? Especially for businesses like large corporations as well as SMEs. Okay. Because typically, especially during the last year, we saw businesses needing to pivot. And to change their business model, right? So with regards to talents, particularly for digital, right? We really saw a shortage in terms of digital talents that kickstart and get the ball rolling immediately, right? Without doing the trial and error kind of situation.
So you're talking about a sudden shift there in demand?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So you talk about a sudden spike in demand. Where do you see the particular gaps in relation to that?
So like I've mentioned, right, 2019 was, really unprecedented for all of us. I think businesses, education sector, people themselves, entrepreneurs did not really see that coming. And that sudden shift and that sudden disparity and disequilibrium, literally, there's really high demands for tech talents, right? And I don't mean just purely from a traditional tech talent like data scientists, like software engineering, but more importantly, a more digital thinking first, right? The talent that actually has been around with technology, that understands what is required to get to a certain outcome, right? For customers essentially, because essentially that's what startup is all about, right? To provide customers with better, faster, and cheaper products and services.
So there's a whole umbrella of thinking that's lacking, not just particular skills.
Correct. It's not a particular skill, but really a shift in thought process in terms of doing business online.
Okay, cool. Well, look, with that in mind, I mean, that's a good problem to have, let's say, right? So what do you think are methods whereby we can address those gaps? Are there approaches where, let's say, we can look for transferable skill sets as an example? What sort of things have you deployed to get the talent you need to address that? Or perhaps down the line, what are you looking at doing?
Okay, well, I suppose from a company's point of view, right? There is really a shortage of talents in Malaysia. So I think especially during the 2019-2020 period of time, we had to actually outsource some of these talents outside of Malaysia, right, due to the shortage. But essentially, I think at the end of the day, there's really sometimes no choice, right? So it's a matter of just really bringing in fresh grads. To come in and kickstart their career with us. But however, though, I think I think it's a very expensive and timely exercise, right? Because essentially they really don't have real world experiences, right? And there's a lot of hand holdings required. So I think in the long run, I think there should be certainly more structural shift in terms of how we bring a fresh grad all the way to, or someone from a student, fresh grad, and all the way to you know, a career point of view.
So you're kind of pointing to a midterm plan. There's no silver bullet, really. We have to invest for the longer term.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's going to be a longer term view. I mean, if you think about even the education sector, right, there needs to be an overhaul, right? COVID-19 has showed us that we were really scrambling even to get our tablets in, you know, for schools, right? Getting, you know, the infrastructure-wise in terms of connectivity in Malaysia, right? To make sure that, you know, people can actually do distance learning, right? In that sense. So, you know, we're still very much lacking in that sense in terms of infrastructure point of view. But I think that needs to be deployed, you know, is really now,
I'd really like to get your view on the graduate side though, something that's kind of important to me as well. What do you think of the quality of graduates coming through and the potential of you know, Malaysian graduates coming through the system?
I would say, I mean, so far, I think in terms of exposure-wise, there certainly needs to be a lot more exposure in terms of what other markets, what other countries are doing. So I think exposure-wise could be potentially lacking as well. And on top of that, I think language is also one of, you know, really the challenge and the gap at the moment. But having said that, I do believe that, you know, Malaysians being Malaysians, right? They're typically a lot more hardworking, a lot more entrepreneur, and a lot more down to earth, right? And essentially, I think if you do want to open up market in Malaysia, you definitely need to engage Malaysians to help build that product for you, right? Because it's really by Malaysians for Malaysians.
So there's the future has a lot of potential based on the graduates coming through if we get it right in terms of grooming them for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So Amanda, we hear this phrase war on talent quite a lot at the moment, and as I think you referred to in your opening statement. So to give yourself as a business the best chance possible of attracting the best talent, anything you can say to the audience about, you know, developing some employer branding that is appealing to attract the best talent, and more importantly, to retain the best talent? I'd be really interested in your views on that.
I have got the experience of, you know, being in a larger corporate, you know, GLC type organization, right? So at the end of the day, it all boils down to culture, right? And I've also got the other extreme whereby it's more startup, you know, more agile setting. So I think the both kind of culture would attract different types of, you know, employees, right? Again, you know, the larger setup typically, you know, it's a more stable, more strategic, more operational potentially. Whereas the startup is more agile, more creative, right? Really trying to understand what the pain points of the consumers, because, you know, they revolve the entire business model in that manner. So I think in terms of, you know, attracting, it really depends on the employer themselves, right? What kind of talents they're looking for. And I think ultimately, I think, you know, regardless of the size, regardless of the type of culture or branding, I think the purpose of existence is very important. And must always be communicated, you know, to the rest of the team, right?
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, whether is it a large setup or is it a small setup, I think you know, really doing your best work with a purpose is important as you know, get to work every day.
Yes, this comes up quite a bit, Amanda. So completely agree. And in terms of how you get that communicated to your team, what sort of approaches do you think might be effective?
I think it has got to be very much in the DNA itself, right, of the company and the brand. And I think as long as we do the work that we do, right, you know, in terms of even the business model side of things, has got to revolve around that DNA and that purpose. Right. So ultimately, I think you got to have the rest of the team, right, you know, being, you know, with you on that same vision and purpose. And then I think, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really not so much, and potentially, yes, it can be part of the camaraderie as well. But at the end of the day, it's really about doing things with people you want to do it with together, right? To achieve that that end goal.
So it comes from the people you hire in the first place, I guess. You know, you bring them into that vision and the sorts of problems you want to solve from the get-go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
value system has got to match as well, right? Because if you're here for a different purpose,
Yeah.
then there's a misalignment in terms of, you know, what
Yeah.
the value system is or what your goals that
Yeah.
you want to achieve.
So businesses from the outset should really think about the problem statement that they want to address and get that to shine and communicate that from the outset. And if you get that right, then you're going to breed that loyalty and retention.
Correct. And
Yeah.
you attract the right kind of people to your organization as well.
Great message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think, you know, with that interaction, right, between foreign and local should always be there.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you know, we want to be on a global stage, right?
Yes.
So it's all about making sure we are competitive, not just locally, but also
Yes.
globally as well.